There's nothing new under the sun. This phrase is often stated in the fitness community to denote stagnation. The idea that there's only so many things to talk about before content starts to get stale. But me personally, I like to dance to the beat of my own drum, and I get the opposite impression from that statement. Everything that there is to know is already out there, but you have to find it first, and that means it's yours for the taking. And just as sure as there's always a new star to find in the sky or a new animal to discover, there's always something to learn about your body, and I know enough to know that I know nothing at all. I have made great progress the last 7-8 months, and it's because of 5 new changes that I made to my training. I originally had 10 tips planned for this video, but only 5 made the cut, and I didn't want to pump this video out because I really needed to make sure that this stuff actually worked. I'm your host, Bald Omni-Man, and without any further ado, I'm happy to say that the tips I'm going to share with you today are game changers. Every great story starts off with a call to action. And what screams call to action more than going to the gym and hitting arms, am I right? In 2022, 2023, there was a huge boom in arm training popularity. Arms went from getting picked last in gym class to being a billionaire real estate tycoon with a monopoly on all things swole. To me personally, I think I got a little over enthusiastic and started doing too much redundant work. I improved my arm training by focusing on doing less total work for just the sake of doing it, and more on driving up performance while still hitting everything that needed to be hit. It's like min-maxing your stats on an RPG. What this looks like practically is fishing for that redundancy in your exercise selection. For example, if you did a supinated curl for the day, like say a strict dumbbell curl, there's absolutely no reason for you to do a similar exercise, especially if you're doing indirect work on your biceps from pulls, like pull-ups, pull-downs, rows, and things of that nature. I took it a step further and said, hey, why not just do the supinated curls on one day and then the hammer grip curls on another day? Again, just to focus on giving my best performance to each of those types of exercises. And to me, that's what the biggest indicator of growth is at the end of the day. What's your performance on these movements? Is it going up? Is it maintaining? Is it going down? Or are you not able to perform at your highest because you're doing too much? This new min-maxing approach that I took for arms really just saved me from a lot of wear and tear, and overall led to more smooth progression. Practically, I went from doing maybe 15 total sets a week to maybe 10 sets a week. So pretty moderate volume and overall more performance focused. Same goes for the triceps. Every good story is also known for its twist. And speaking of triceps, this next tip has accumulated some great tricep gains. And the reason for that is honestly shocking. I made a video last week talking about my favorite pressing exercise, weighted dips. Check that out later, by the way, if you're interested. And in that video, I mentioned that you should pause at the top and the bottom of your dips for best results, particularly for your triceps. Reason being is that your triceps are exposed to extra loading when you do that. Pretty simple stuff, right? Now, I put in a lot of reps and a lot of practice doing that on dips. So naturally, I just started doing that on other things as well without even really thinking about it. What I noticed is that I started to feel the long head of my triceps, the medius part of your triceps, a lot more on almost everything, but particularly on press downs, which traditionally is not seen as an exercise that hits the long head as much as, say, an overhead movement. Now granted, this is a shortened contraction, which may or may not be less stimulating than one you get where you stretch the muscle. And we're also getting this shortened contraction from a very advantageous position where we're locked out. But all the same, it's a stimulus that, quite frankly, your boy was not getting before. So we'll chalk that one up to a marginal benefit that adds up over time. It's like depositing pennies. This ain't just a single benefit tip. This is a 1 + 1 = 3. I also found that my sets became more effective just simply because I was taking my time. When you pause at the top and at the bottom, you can't cycle through the reps as quickly. I'm not perfect with this. Sometimes I forget to, but overall, this is something that if you purposely add this on, say, a secondary session, you'll add some more variation and then some more novelty to your training as well, and get an additional stimulus that you may not get otherwise. For number 3, let's take it back to the basics, shall we? One of the most basic things that you can do to get better at something is to do it as often as you can. My upper body is the something here that I'm referring to, okay? And it recovers in time for me to hit it well 3 times a week. And so I hit that bad boy up 3 times a week. This does a few things and has some distinct advantages over just hitting your upper body twice a week, which is awesome, but I think this is just genuinely an upgrade. For one, in general, like I said, the more often that you can hit something hard and heavy and at a good effort, the better. Training my upper body 3 times a week gives me the unique opportunity to progress in reps and weight more often, and more importantly, to get in practice with lifting hard and heavy more often as well, and with higher exercise selection. Now, if you're looking for a highly personalized and customizable example, you can check out my Golden Warrior program on Boostcamp with the link in the description and in the pinned comment. Or check out the free video overview I made for it, which includes a pretty lengthy ebook explaining everything. Another huge benefit that I've noticed from doing 3 times a week frequency is that I can do slightly more hard volume a week with slightly less volume per session. For example, you can either do 5 slightly higher quality sets of something because you're not having to worry about doing another exercise. You can do that 3 times a week for a total of 15 sets instead of doing 6 slightly lower quality sets 2 times a week because you have to do 3 sets of this and say 3 sets of that. Imagine doing more high quality work, less total work per session, and then feeling fresh as a daisy. Why wouldn't you do that if you could? Now, that's not to say that I never do multiple exercises for a single muscle group on one session, but overall it's a lot more consolidated than it has been in the past. Number 4 is an old school banger. Leading in from our 3rd tip into our penultimate piece of advice, I started training overhead, flat, and decline pressing all on their own days. This is a surefire way to avoid what I was honestly plagued with for a long time, which was having a relatively weak overhead and then incline pressing motion. I'll have an overhead press day, then I'll have a weighted dip day, and then I'll have a flat pressing day. Not only is this a lot of fun, but it also keeps each session laser focused and keeps you hungry to perform each lift because you're only doing it once a week. And I must say, I dare say, if I may be so bold, let's forget optimal lifting, let's forget old school lifting, let's forget all of that. Let's just start lifting for fun. Because fellas, that spark, that passion, that enjoyment of your hobby, that long-term buy-in is what's gonna keep you in the gym coming back year after year. And that's the most important thing, dude, consistency. If you want an exact example of this, stay tuned for my next video where I go through a full week of my recent upper body training, where I'll also be releasing a new program based on that training as well. So stay tuned and leave me a like if you want to see that soon. For number 5, last but certainly not least, is also leading into the idea that we proposed on the 3rd one. But we're gonna make each day different in novel ways, even if the structure is the same. A lot of training is just doing the same thing over and over again, I'm not gonna lie. Don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful hobby, but you can make it a little bit more fun by just taking the basic exercises and roles that you were trying to fill in each session and then mutating them a bit to keep each session feeling different. For example, instead of doing the same overhead tricep extension 3 times a week, I do one day with my Omni bar, one day with my cables, and then honestly with the last day, fellas, I just honestly do whatever the hell I feel like doing. The order of exercises is going to be the same, as well as the type of exercise that I do, but your actual exercises that you fill in are just a little bit different to keep that carrot dangling in front of the proverbial jacked and stacked racehorse. Now, I know we're going to war over 4 to 8 reps being the best or higher reps being best, but this is a case where using a different rep range on each day helps with that novelty a lot as well. Working in different rep ranges gives you access to getting stronger in different ways, which gives you multiple goals to work at once. But as with anything else, if you don't implement these 5 things over a prolonged period of time, you're not going to get any benefit from it. In fact, I always tell people, look, if you find a program that you like, even if it's not mine, you run it until the wheels fall off. You make your little changes to keep it fun, and that's what we talked about today, but you got to keep it in there. Now, I'll be keen to revisit this topic in another 6 to 8 months just to see what other stuff I find out. Fellas, thank you so much for watching. Do me a favor and check out this video where I talked about dips. And if you liked the video, like the video and leave me a comment. I hope y'all have a great day. See you later.